Siberia. When the tiger faces the wolf, the image freezes in time. A massive Amur tiger pins a Siberian wolf into the snow, its weight crushing the struggle beneath it. Blood stains the white ground, a violent contrast against the silence of winter. In the background, other wolves stand still. They do not attack. They do not flee. They wait. This is not a typical hunt. This is a rare confrontation between two apex predators that rule the same frozen land. In Siberia, where temperatures can fall below -40 degrees Celsius, even the strongest hunters cannot afford mistakes. Every movement costs energy. Every injury can mean death. Frozen silence begins here, not to sensationalize the moment, but to understand it. Why would a solitary giant and a master of pack survival be forced into the same brutal frame? Siberia is not simply cold. It is one of the most demanding ecosystems on Earth. Winters are long, daylight is scarce, and prey animals migrate, starve, or collapse under the weight of snow. Survival here is a constant calculation between hunger and risk. Both tigers and wolves depend on the same prey: deer, wild boar, and elk. When food becomes scarce, territorial boundaries blur. Paths cross, competition sharpens. In these moments, Siberia chooses no side. It only tests who is better adapted. The Amur tiger survives through raw power and patience. It hunts alone, relying on stealth, explosive strength, and a body built to endure the cold. Thick fur, wide paws, and dense muscle allow it to ambush prey in deep snow where others struggle to move. One successful kill can sustain a tiger for days. One failure can mean starvation. Wolves, on the other hand, survive through cooperation. A single wolf is vulnerable, but a pack becomes a moving intelligence. They track prey for hours, exhaust animals larger than themselves, and share the rewards. Their strength is not in size, but in coordination, endurance, and numbers. When these two strategies collide, the outcome is never guaranteed. A tiger can overpower a wolf in seconds, yet a pack can harass, surround, and drive even the largest predator away. This is why encounters between tigers and wolves are rare, tense, and often unresolved. Fun fact: in regions where Amur tigers are present, wolf populations tend to shift their territory and behavior. Wolves avoid areas heavily used by tigers, not because they are weaker, but because conflict costs too much energy in a land where calories decide survival. Siberia does not reward bravery or aggression. It rewards efficiency. And in the frozen silence of this ecosystem, every predator listens carefully, knowing that the next sound in the snow could decide life or death. The conflict between tigers and wolves in Siberia is not a constant war. It is a quiet pressure that has shaped behavior over decades. Historical records and field studies show that where Amur tigers reclaim territory, wolves gradually withdraw. Not because wolves cannot fight, but because the cost is too high. A wounded wolf cannot hunt. A limping pack collapses. Tigers, heavier and stronger, do not compete often, but when they do, the outcome leaves a mark on the landscape. Wolves learn, routes change, howls fade from certain valleys. There are rare cases where wolves harass a tiger, especially younger or injured individuals. But these are calculated risks, not acts of dominance. Wolves test boundaries. Tigers enforce them. The balance is unstable, but it persists because neither side can afford open conflict for long. This tension exists within a much larger system. The Siberian taiga stretches endlessly, a forest of conifers locked in cold for most of the year. Pine, fir, and larch dominate the land, their roots gripping frozen soil. Snow muffles sound. Scent travels slowly in the cold air. Visibility is limited. This favors ambush predators, but only if they conserve energy. Prey animals define everything here. Elk move slowly through deep snow, burning calories with every step. Red deer migrate along ancient paths. Wild boar dig beneath the snow for roots, exposing themselves to attack. When prey numbers drop, predators spread out. Territories expand. Encounters increase. Winter is the true ruler of Siberia. Movement becomes expensive. Hunger sharpens decision-making. Predators hunt less often, but with greater precision. A failed hunt in winter is more dangerous than an injury. Energy lost may never be recovered. Summer changes the rules. The forest opens. Rivers thaw. Prey reproduces. Predators gain strength, but visibility improves, making hunts less certain. Wolves rely more on endurance. Tigers retreat deeper into cover. Competition softens, but it never disappears. This ecosystem does not favor the strongest or the smartest alone. It favors those who waste the least. In Siberia, survival is quiet. No roar echoes for long. No howl goes unanswered by the cold. Every animal moves as if the forest is watching. Because it is. And when the snow falls again, the balance resets. Memory of winter. Winter leaves more than snow behind. It leaves memory. Animals that survive the Siberian cold carry its lessons into every movement. Wolves that lost pack members hunt with tighter coordination. Tigers that failed an ambush become more patient, choosing terrain more carefully. In the tiger, experience is not optional. It is inherited through behavior. Scars are common. They are not signs of defeat, but records of adaptation. A torn ear, a limp that fades by summer, a cautious pause before crossing open ground. These small changes decide who survives the next freeze. Prey shapes the land. Predators do not control Siberia. Prey does. When deer populations grow, the forest opens with movement. Predators narrow their territories. Conflict decreases. When prey declines, silence spreads. Hunger pushes hunters farther, deeper, and closer to one another. Wild boar play an unexpected role. By digging through snow and frozen soil, they expose food sources not only for themselves, but for smaller animals. This reshapes local feeding zones and indirectly draws predators into the same areas. Nothing in the taiga exists in isolation. Every hoof print influences a paw print that follows. Taiga without borders. From the air, Siberia looks endless. From the ground, it is fragmented. Rivers freeze into highways. Forest edges become hunting lines. Wind-carved ridges offer visibility but drain heat. Predators learn these features faster than any map could teach them. Tigers often patrol along natural barriers, using rivers and cliffs to reduce patrol distance. Wolves move through gaps, corridors, and valleys, optimizing distance rather than control. These invisible boundaries reduce conflict, but they never eliminate it. Silence as a survival tool. Sound travels differently in cold. The forest absorbs it. Wolves howl less in deep winter, not out of fear, but efficiency. Sound reveals location. Tigers rely almost entirely on stillness, waiting for prey to make the first mistake. Even breathing changes. Animals lower activity to avoid vapor trails in extreme cold. The quieter the forest becomes, the higher the stakes are for any movement. In Siberia, silence is not absence, it is strategy. The long night. In midwinter, darkness lasts longer than light. For weeks, the sun barely clears the horizon, and shadows stretch across the snow without moving. Predators adapt their internal clocks to this imbalance. Wolves travel more during low light, when prey vision weakens and human activity is absent. Tigers favor twilight, where contrast is low and the forest dissolves into shapes rather than details. Hunting during the long night reduces success rates but increases safety. In Siberia, avoiding injury often matters more than securing food. Energy over instinct. Instinct alone is not enough here. Energy management governs behavior. A tiger may ignore prey if the distance is too great. Wolves may abandon a chase halfway through, even when prey is visible. These choices look like hesitation, but they are calculations shaped by winter. Fun fact: studies using GPS collars show that Siberian tigers dramatically reduce daily travel during the coldest months, sometimes moving less than half their summer distance. Survival is not about action, it is about restraint. The role of the young. Winter is unforgiving to inexperience. Young wolves struggle to keep pace. Young tigers misjudge distance and timing. Mortality is highest in the first winters of life, when skill has not yet replaced impulse. Those who survive carry winter forward. Their hunting improves. Their movements shorten. Their risk tolerance drops. In Siberia, maturity is measured not in age, but in winters endured. human shadows. Even in the most remote taiga, humans leave traces. Abandoned villages, logging scars, frozen roads. These structures alter movement patterns. Prey learns to avoid them. Predators learn to use them. Tigers sometimes hunt along forest edges created by logging, where prey is forced into predictable paths. Wolves use cleared corridors to move efficiently across large distances. Human absence does not restore wilderness, it reshapes it. A balance that breathes. The relationship between tigers and wolves is not dominance, but pressure. When tiger numbers rise, wolves adapt by shifting territory and hunting smaller prey. When tigers decline, wolves expand. The ecosystem responds slowly, but it responds. This balance breathes with the seasons, tightening in winter, loosening in summer, never settling permanently. Siberia remains neutral. It does not favor claws or coordination. It favors those who listen to the land and move only when necessary. The long night. In the heart of Siberian winter, night is not a phase. It is a condition. For months, daylight shrinks to a narrow band along the horizon, casting weak light that never fully warms the forest. Shadows stretch across frozen ground, unmoving, as if time itself has slowed. This prolonged darkness alters the behavior of every animal in the taiga. Wolves adjust their travel patterns, moving steadily during low light, when prey becomes less alert, and human presence is minimal. Their vision adapts well to dim conditions, and coordinated movement allows them to navigate safely even when visibility is poor. Howling becomes rare, not from fear, but from discipline. Sound carries far in cold air, and location is information best kept hidden. Tigers use the darkness differently. They do not roam, they wait. Low contrast and limited visibility allow them to dissolve into the forest. Twilight becomes their advantage, where shapes blur and prey struggles to separate shadow from danger. In the long night, stillness is not passive, it is deliberate. energy as currency. In Siberia, energy replaces instinct as the primary guide. Every step through deep snow drains strength. Every failed hunt increases risk. Predators that survive the cold learn to measure effort with precision. A tiger may observe prey for hours and abandon the attempt if the angle is wrong. Wolves may pursue a target only to disengage once terrain or wind shifts against them. These decisions are not signs of weakness. They are signs of experience. Winter teaches restraint. Movement is minimized. Territory contracts. Efficiency becomes more valuable than aggression. Fun fact: satellite tracking reveals that during extreme cold spells, both wolves and tigers reduce their activity to the lowest levels recorded all year. The forest appears empty, but life is conserving itself, waiting. Prey under pressure. Prey animals endure the longest battle in Siberia, and it is rarely visible. Deep snow turns every step into resistance. Deer and elk expend enormous amounts of energy simply moving across the landscape, calories burned not in escape, but in survival itself. To reduce loss, they rely on routes carved by generations before them, narrow corridors where snow is compacted and movement costs less. These paths are not choices, they are inheritance. Stillness becomes another strategy. Many prey animals remain motionless for hours, sometimes days, conserving heat and energy while blending into the forest. Reduced movement lowers detection, but also slows feeding, forcing a careful balance between hunger and exposure. The cold pushes bodies to their limits long before predators arrive. Wild boar reshape the surface of winter. By digging through snow and frozen soil, they uncover roots, insects, and buried vegetation. This activity sustains them, but it also alters the landscape. Disturbed snow, broken crust, exposed earth. To predators, these are signals written clearly across the forest floor. Where boar feed, attention follows. Young prey suffer most. Late births, weak limbs, inexperience. Winter shows no patience for growth. Many do not make it past their first cold season. There is no pursuit, no chase. Selection happens quietly through exhaustion, cold, and time. tiger in motion. The tiger appears frozen, but it never stops changing. Snowfall reshapes the land daily. Fresh powder conceals obstacles. Wind compresses drifts into hardened barriers. Valleys fill, ridges scour clean. Forests open and close with shifting weight. Rivers freeze into corridors, then fracture without warning. Ice becomes both pathway and trap. Predators respond by memorizing terrain in fragments. Tigers learn where snow stays shallow beneath thick canopy. Wolves learn which ridges allow faster travel and which valleys drain energy. These mental maps are constantly updated. A safe route 1 week may become impassable the next. Vegetation influences movement as much as weather. Dense conifer stands soften snowfall and absorb sound. Open clearings amplify wind and visibility. Tigers sink into cover where silence favors ambush. Wolves exploit exposure where distance and endurance shape outcomes. Nothing remains static. The tiger rearranges itself, and survival depends on reading those changes faster than hunger forces mistakes. When territories collide, even with caution, overlap is inevitable. Prey does not respect boundaries. When deer migrate or herds collapse, predators follow. A wolf pack may drift into areas typically controlled by a tiger. A tiger may track weakened prey into open ground, where wolves dominate movement. These crossings are tense, but rarely prolonged. Neither predator seeks confrontation. Conflict consumes energy, risks injury, and destabilizes survival. Wolves test distance, approach cautiously, assess numbers and posture. Tigers assert presence through silence, positioning, and size. Often, this is enough. Most encounters dissolve without sound, a change in direction, a delayed hunt, a territory quietly adjusted. The forest absorbs the moment and moves on, rarely Circumstances remove the option to withdraw. Exhaustion, deep snow, surprise. Decisions compress into seconds. The outcome leaves brief evidence, then disappears under fresh snowfall. The land erases conflict faster than it reveals it. Adaptation over dominance. No species controls Siberia. Strength alone fails here. Intelligence without restraint fails faster. The ecosystem rewards adaptability above all else. Tigers survive through patience, power applied sparingly, and precise timing. Wolves endure through cooperation, flexibility, and constant adjustment. Neither strategy is superior. Each succeeds because it limits risk. Knowing when not to act becomes as important as knowing how. This balance did not form through dominance, but through avoidance. Thousands of years of shared territory shaped behaviors that reduce unnecessary conflict. The result is not peace, but coexistence under pressure. In the frozen taiga, survival is not loud or heroic. It is quiet, conditional, and never guaranteed.